Here we are, guys, after another busy week around the landline offices and a busy week of headlines. And Keith, we'll get it rolling with you. Transportation funding, not always the sexiest of topics, but it's an important one for truckers across the country. And a couple of states this past week taking some measures to secure some of that transportation funding.
Yeah, well, it always depends on what you're into. If you're talking about transportation funding, for some folks really get into that kind of thing, definitely helps. But anyway, yeah, no. In Arizona, you've got voters are going to have an opportunity here in November to decide whether or not they would want to have the door open for a possible VMT in the future. As it is now, they don't have any, but the legislature approved putting a question on the November ballot for voters to have the final say on whether or not that could ever be an option. Now, worth pointing out that this would not affect any VMT programs for trucks crossing state lines. So there is that little caveat in there. But then you've got in Michigan, they don't have anything to collect fees for electric vehicles, electric trucks specifically. And they're wanting to create something very similar to the diesel tax. So they've got a question moving through the state house there that would allow a fee for electric trucks.
Well, transportation funding obviously important for truckers. Another thing that a lot of truckers have been paying attention to has been nuclear verdicts over the last couple of years. We've seen a huge spike in those. Mark, this past week, a bill introduced to try to maybe safeguard against some of those.
Yeah, the bill is called the Uniform Vehicle Safety Standards Act. It was introduced by Senator Deb Fisher out of Nebraska and Mike Flood, also out of Nebraska, congressman in the House. And basically, it would aim to protect manufacturers. If you remember back in 2024, there was a huge, like $400 million verdict against Wabash over their trailers. And, the hope is that this would protect manufacturers and then potentially also help carriers as well.
Well, absolutely, and it's one of those things that you've seen a lot of those verdicts over the last year. So any measures that are going to be in place to protect truckers is going to be a good thing. Well, head on over to landline.media right now to check out more on those stories, along with a story out of Texas about a unique law that could charge you $2,000 for making an illegal U-turn. And also, Keith, you put together a story about flying cars this week. All that over at landline.media.